My name is Spitch Nzawumbi. You're watching Something Nice with Dinano. Please make sure that you subscribe on this channel, watch this episode, and share as many times.
Spitch Nzawumbi.
Yes.
Kunjani?
Ndikhona njani?
It was supposed to be done lento yonke ngo-2019 asakwazi
Yes.
kodwa ke lifike lixesha inkosi ngelithuba Spitch
Inkosi thini? Ndiyabona ngintoni ngegama lento?
1 2 something nice with
Yeah.
Dinano.
Okay.
Ndifuna ukintroduce olu hlobo
Okay.
because I've seen i-career yakho, I've seen you grow kuba sisuka kude sobabini. Sawungena ke nakwezo zonto apha encokweni.
Yeah.
Radio DJ,
Mhm.
umsasazi owaziwayo, worship team leader. Uyayazi le? Sayikhumbula.
Downtown.
Journalist, wakwa practice.
By trade.
Yes. Talk show host,
Mhm.
definitely. Current affairs presenter
Mhm.
on TV,
Mhm.
not on radio. Social media influencer,
Mhm.
MC, government communicator, lecturer. Ikhona into endiyilibalayo?
Khona ilibalayo. Xa senisuka nokuproduce indaba zesiXhosa.
Okay.
Mm.
Kasike singene kuloo drama.
With the likes of Noxolo Grootboom. Ndicela loo nto ibe yi-highlight. Also, I was a producer on radio. I was both presenter and producer. By the time I left, I was presenting and producing my show.
Kulaa show yakho. Okay. Ukhula kwakho kuloo ndawo ukhulela kuyo uzasixelela ngayo. Ulele ebhedini yakho mhlawumbe una-5 una-7. Umbona ephi uSpitch in 20 years time? Thina siyambona ngoku but asizazi ingcinga uSpitch awayenazo ukhula kwakhe kwabhaca. What was on your mind every day, every night usebhedini ulala amaphupha akho anjani?
Yo, I was such a dreamer, ukhula kwam. I think I can take it back to high school.
Okay.
Because in high school, that's where I truly discovered myself in a way. I think I discovered by intoni passionate ngayo, intoni good kuyo. You know, most when you're growing up, primary school senisuka nokubaleka mfundini kuthiwa kuyabalekwa xa kubalekwa ekuqaleni konyaka. Ndandibaleka apha khawube nombono wam ndibaleka i-relay nentoni. Uve ngapha kuthiwa makuhambe kuyodlalwa senisuka nokufaka kwitimu kwathiwa uthik makahambe ayongena kwitimu yerugby. Ndandivika qho apho because kaloku irugby kuyabethwa ndiyayoyika into ebethisayo. But when I got to high school, I think I was in grade 10. And I remember two teachers of mine. One was a teacher like yesiXhosa, omnye teacher like history. They used to say to me, you need to join debating and public speaking. In fact, it was a debating society. At the time, I remember one of each champs, I think a year before I got to that school. Because when I got to grade 10, ndachinja isikolo. I had to go back home from Port Shepstone. And one of his students that were top debaters, the year I was doing grade 10, actually the year endandizawujoyina ngayo, kwakhona ishow Take 5. So wayihambe wade wayovela ku Take 5 umfondini. So when they said, you need to join public speaking and debating, I was like, soze. Like he was brilliant. That guy was brilliant. And credit. But he was brilliant. So I think in high school, grade 10, that's when I sort of, all I wanted was to make it. I won't lie to you. I think I've always, like I've always taken myself seriously, and not just that, but I was always focused. Ne? So in high school, or people I went to high school with, very naughty, ne? But at the same time, I was always focused.
That making it, that you always want to make it, was it detailed enough for you to have left vision?
I think it got defined as in cool, right? So in like I'm saying in grade 10 in high school, you all abanye bathi they are so sure they're like I want to be a doctor and whatnot. So mna because ndati kwi history stream and abantu abenza history kwakuthiwa bonke bayokwenza i-law, ne? So at some point I remember ndandithi xa ndiphuma esikolweni ndihambe ndiye at a close by magistrates court. Ndifike ndihlale phaa ndimamele cases and just to see proceedings bazenze kanjani. And then I think when I got to grade 11, I realized, but no, this is not what I want. So I think as Ndian Kula, the dream and the idea of making it got more defined. But ngela xesha ndisengumntwana omncinci, I just knew that I want to make it. And I knew that andifuna ukuphelela in my small village. I don't want to bandiphelele lentozana Eastern Cape. I don't want to be one of those people who had dreams and then, I mean, nothing wrong, but there are very successful people in the Eastern Cape. But I think I knew that particularly what I wanted to do, in order for me to achieve it or greatness, I have to go beyond. I actually saw the world.
So uthi dreams zakho were not really defined, but at least you knew about
I knew what I wanted.
Uphuma ungapheleli apha kule ndawo kuyo. Khawusixelela about the environment, indawo okhulela kuyo, and how it shaped lo mntu unguye namhlanje, because abantu abaninzi bathi you are a storyteller. Ndila ngokugezela ndithi ungugcina mhlophe who's bubbling on. Right? How obabomi bapha kwaBhaca bukushape njani ba ube ngulo mntu unguye, the storyteller?
Okay, so ndizalwa eMthatha, ndizalelwe Khwezi at the time, and I think round about 1994-95 samuvela eNorwood kwaseMthatha, ne? I think I've always been a person on a memory that recalls incidents, especially events, those that were eventful. So ndikhule ndingula mntana if ukuphuma umuntu okube kwenzeke into, zafika ndiyibalise ndikwazi nokulinganisa kuba ubani wathini, you know? My aunt always tells a story about wayiqhela ukuyokwenza i-acting classes eMthatha. One time, I was 5 years old. One time, ndimkhaphile. So, njengoba be-acta nje kune-lady aba-acta nalo, kufuneka acte as usisi odikwe indoda, ophumayo, but i-lines zakhe yazilibala. If ubambe i-lines, akakwazi uku-acta le nto kufuneka i-actile, ne? I mean, I was 5 years old at the time. I remember I stood up and ndathi ke mna ke kuthiwa yenza kanje. Hayi ndayithatha khona ndambonisa kuba ndiyaphuma ngako, you know. So ndambonisa lo sise wonke umuntu wayishocked uba ngumntwana otheni nalo, you know. And I think ngoku then I moved, unfortunately, in 1996 my brother had to move a boarding school, and then beginning 1997 kwathiwa ke mna ke ndizawuhamba ndiyofunda just for a year or two, ndihlale with my maternal grandparents kwamakhulu notatomkhulu, which is my mom's home, because umama wayiphangele by at the time. Sikhule mosile family seMthatha, and then because of work she had to move to Port Elizabeth, and unfortunately that's where she met her demise the same year. So ndakhulela ke ngoku eMount. And the beauty about that switch, and I'm always grateful for it, because I always say if ndandingumntwana uye wakhulela eBhayi, because what was going to happen around 1998, we're going to move to eBhayi, ne? I don't think I would have been the person that I am, because ngoku I'm moving to a full family. Kukhona umakhulu notatomkhulu, I've got my uncles and my aunts, and now I'm learning into yobana awusongumntwana walapha nje, you are a child of the village. Izinto ezifana nobuntu are things that were instilled at a very young age. My grandma was a conversationalist, and I always tell people bandiyithatha apho laa of being a conversationalist. She was a storyteller. There are times I remember very clearly growing up where sihlale mhlambe around the heater okanye kubasiwe or around there. You know, you hear people, you always hear storytellers saying would sit around the fireplace, and we truly did, you know. But more than anything, now in the village there were bizarre stories, ne? Stories about ukuthakatha, stories about imfene, stories about you know, my grandma always told a story about how when they were kids, there was a volcano in their village.
Khawusibalisele story.
No,
a story that stands out for you ebuntwaneni bakho.
Wow, there are so many.
Khetha sibe one.
There are so many. Sure. Now I'm going to think, because some of them happened in this born. But you know, growing up, there was once an incident. Now talking about, you know, this whole thing back to ukuthakatha into ekhoyo noba into engekhoyo na. This one truly happened, ne? And there was this aunt in the village. She had a house, normal home, Ndondoni. And then one day we heard gunshots, right? And it turned out that the guy she was being shot, ne? By a guy who was close proximity to their house. Apparently, this guy used to go there to watch Ibola nonyana wakhona, ne? And njengoba behleli nje bebukele le bola, athi omnye man ndifuna ukuye kitchen okanye ashiwe ngulo mfana phe lounge ayothatha into kitchen. Uyakhumbula la minyango yakudala kwakhona into ezijingayo ezikhalayo as a wood. I forgot what they were called. And then this guy,
chimes,
yes, those chimes. And then uthi njoba elapha e lounge, apparently he saw his sister that had died about 3 years ago, standing up actually at the kumnyango wala bedroom, and asked Bazban kutheni ndiyekile ndilapha, why have you forsaken me? So this guy then freaked out. Apparently wathi kubuza kulona baniyathakatha ntontoni. This guy ran, and then clearly as he was running away, lona wahamba ethatha isibhamu sikatatake. Then lo mama kanti wabuya waza kulo mzi wangena seyiphethe isibhamu wabaleka uchomo wakhe lo. The younger sister wathi sabaleka xa itsiba ucingo wadutyulwa, ne? And actually this is a crazy story now that I think about it, ndimdala, but it truly happened. Wadutyulwa esatsiba ucingo, umama wakhona wehla emotweni. Xa ehla emotweni kwakhona uquqa ke ezilalini i-transport livene sesifakwa phana nonke xa nisuka etown umuntu ohle ku-eZilalini. Xa ehla ku-eZilalini yothenga igrocery etown ngonyana lo quf. Bathi ke babekhona, uyazazi ke story xa sesibalisa sekhona nencasist. Bathi babekhona wathi ukudutyulwa kwakhe njengoba dutyulwa uqala kwaqhuma ipowder, ne? Waphinda wadutyulwa. Hayi bo kadubuleki. Aba wayenepeske ndiyamkhumbula ngenam because I was very young, but I remember she used to have yabona eza clash bezakudala zamama zazihlala. So kuthiwa this guy shot him apha engalweni. Then ke xa sekuwa laphes, that's when wakwazi ukuwa khona. Then apparently then kwafika amapolice. Of course the guy was arrested. It was a long case. I think he spent years in prison. But ke ngoku kwanezinto zokuba bekubhaka kwizinto pha ke njengoba seklinwe qonda kulungiselwa umngcwabo. And the only person who was left there was the son who ohamba wabaselibhacweni ngexesha kwenzeka lana. It's just one of the bizarre stories I can tell, but there are too many. I would have to kuba ndicinge, but what I'm trying to tell you is growing up in the village gave me that ability to tell stories. And it's not just stories because kukhula sixelwa ngoCinderella. It's not Cinderella, a princess ebalekileyo funeka ibuyile ephethwe kakubi nesihlangu esizawubanjwa yi-prince. It's stories about people, i-reality yabantu, and abafana nathi
that we can relate to.
Exactly. So I think I had an interest of storytelling from that age. But besides that, man, growing up with neighbors, there was always a story. Being ku-stallion near town, there's a story. You go ecaweni, there's a story. Umamele eteksini kune-story. There's always a story. Bakwenzeke into ethile phaphana kwathini sekusuka noba khona ihako kwakuthiwa ivala indlela ebusuku kuleqa. You know, such crazy things. Oxa sozibalisa ngobathi abantu, oh come on.
Zisekhona kodwa ezo story. You know, zekati eziqhuba imoto e-4ways.
Ewe apha eRhawutini uyaba, and I believed that story. When I heard it I was like, serious? I believe it. Because I know, but there are things we cannot explain, ne? That are bizarre when you think about. But uqonda, hey, ndizayicancisa njani into ke black cat eqhuba ikati ilentos, you know? So I think my storytelling then, and then just growing up in that environment, yobuntu, a giving environment. Growing up in an environment where I knew ba andinogeza phambi komuntu omdala because akusomzali wam. You know, sharing environment. ezilalini masikhona izanto zonkinqa afika ummelwane engenanto kutya nabantwana bakhe kohlulwe leni apha ekhaya kuhambe kuyonikwa yena, you know, such things. Respect. Into ekhaya sikhuliswe ngento esimamva nesimaphambili, you know, umama awuthi he untontoni, you know, such things. So I think those things contributed to the person that I eventually became, and I don't think I have fully become the person I'm meant to be. I think I'm work under construction. So as I evolve and as I grow into the fullness of who I'm meant to be, as our values, Nella background contribute, and they keep me grounded and yeah.
Okay, I didn't know about ukhe wahlala eMthatha. I thought usuke eZilalini wafika eMonti. So usuka kwakho ke elalini. I don't know, how was the change of environment? Xa so ubusuqhelile ke ngoku. Usuka eZilalini kwaBhaca, ne? Mount Freya.
Yeah.
Ufika eMonti ke ngoku. So uphumile high school, you've done debating, you've kind of figured the type of person you are, apply for journalism. How was the transition yobomi kuwe ukuya tertiary?
You know, when I got to tertiary, varsity, when I got to varsity,
Right when.
Okay. When I got to varsity, ndathi xa ndiphume ekhaya, my grandma said one thing. So yes, momos uba umntwana uyaphuma, firstly ndingaba banye babantu engathi ndifunde early in a way, because when I left home I was 17. I did my matric at 17. Ndizawuthenisha 18 kula nyaka ndenza ngayo first year. So of course kubana la wari emzalini kuba yilo mntana uzawufika uthi. But when I think about it, I grew up being a very independent child, even though I was in a fully guarded home. Ndikhule kukhaya apho siya khona ecaweni apho ndisazi uba i-curfew ngu-5. Andizuzula nje, ndandingazi nokuzula ke kangako mna, ndanetshomi eyi-1 ezimbini na ekuhlaleni. You know, kune-values ezithile, ndiyazi into ethile funeka yenziwe ngexesha elithile, but I didn't grow up in a very strict household. And that helped me to be able to choose and to navigate as a child, ne? To find my independence. So by the time ndiye varsity, firstly, ngoba independent bam, besengikwazi ukwenza yonke into. I could clean, I could cook, I could, you know, kwalapha ekhaya besenditreyinwa ii-groceries besenziwa ndim. That's why ndimangala namhlanje xa uzothi 17-year-old ayikwazi ukwenza nto, ndiqonda uba hayibo njani ndandigugile at 17. So my grandma only said one thing, and she said, mntanam, uya eyunivesithi, zange ndaba seyunivesithi ke mna. Akukho nto nje enza kuxela yona. Inye qha into enza kuxela yona, ungalihlazi igama lelikhaya. Those words, ungalihlazi igama lelikhaya. Njengoba uphaya, awumelanga wena, umele elikhaya. That's all she said. And I packed my bags, and I remember I left home. I was so emotional that morning. And then she gave me money and I left. When I got to East London, I think I was very, and then also my brother had been in varsity. Okay. So I had experience at the time, because I think when I was doing my matric, wayesey kwi-third year yakhe, wandixelela nje uba ungaze ungene kwi-SRC. So that's all he said. He said, uyabona ke uyafunda pha i-politics ungalingi uzingena. So I knew that, but kuthiwe ndingahlazi ekhaya, ngapha kuthiwe i-SRC awungeni kuyo.
Benza i-doctorate kwi-3-year course. You know, was that the reason?
Because kuthiwa uzofunda pha ugqibe. So when I got to East London, ndifika eWusu, starting in broadcasting, I knew kuba ndizothini apha. And I think for some reason, you know, when you are meant to be endaweni, Dini, because when I did my matric, ngelo xesha si-aplayayo, I applied in a couple of universities. But for some reason, kwezi universities ndandithathelwa ezinye izinto, not le ndiyifunayo. Because I think kwi-matric ndandisendidecided, but I want to be in media. I want to do media studies. So the closest I could study was e-journalism, right? Hence I started good broadcasting the first year, and that helped me, because kwakula first year, I think within yathi phela first quarter, second quarter, ndabe sendenza i-adverts. I remember there used to be uMikbank before athathwe ngo-ABSA, bebe company one. My first advert kwakuyeka Mikbank. And if you remember, there was kwakhona studios at WSU. Ulindo Zici, now Lindo Mandela, was one of the people who were behind that. Lucas Sitole, who made sure in I get that gig. And from then, there was no turning back. And then kwakhona campus radio station and all of that. So I think lawa mazwi uba ungalihlazi igama lelikhaya, nokuba ungangeni ku-SRC, nyani ku-SRC babethi besiza pha. I remember the likes of Terence and whatnot, abantu sasifike bephaya beku-SRC. SRC ndandidlala kude kunayo, ndingafuni nokuba ndithini. And ke ngoku I think into yobunkokheli has always been in me, because ndathi ndifike eRes, kwathiwa ndizaba iRes ntontoni, le sort of i-monitor yalapha eRes, ne? And I remember this one lady said, kufuneka lokhu uzolentoza, funeka sukufake kwinto ze-SRC. And ndaqonda uba kwakuthiwa ekhaya ndingasondeli. So I think that transition was so easy, because in as much as East London was a city, but I knew a town or a city, society debate, like it's a city of East London, right? Is it a town or a city, East London? Yeah.
Whatever it is.
So when I got to East London, I knew ukuba ndifuna ntoni. And I got that in record time, and I left.
Mna ndiqale ukubona, I think 2008.
Mm-hmm.
My first impression of you, Intwana ethele indwebe kangaka. But here you are noko kundweba kwakho and the confidence owawunayo in doing what you were doing. And what I've observed ebomini bakho is culture of excellence in whatever you do.
Yeah.
Right? So it's one of the things I just admire about you. But go and sitting power of maybe manifestation.
Yeah.
But before we get there, because le is linked to something with career yakho.
Yeah.
Phuma kwakho evarsity, I know it wasn't that easy to find indawo ozawukwazi uzinza kuyo.
Yeah.
Ngezistudies ozifundileyo. Tell us about that journey.
So, I went almost the final year. You have to go when's internship and whatnot before graduation. And I remember that year, I moved to Joburg, and I was working for IT Web. It's so funny now because today IT Web is one of the media houses that I get to work with. But at the time, that's by intern at IT Web. It was a very difficult adjustment for me because I think I had taken for granted. You know, East London had become home because I had been there for years. And I think what I did in East London, ndabamba la nto uba ekhaya besihamba inkonzo and bendingumntana osithanda ndandle ndiyithanda ke inkonzo ndasifumanela inkonzo East London, so that became my home. So my environment was very guarded. Ngoku ndiza eJoburg ne kwaqhusa ke eJoburg, and at the time I'm 20 turning 21. I'm not used to the
quite
to
young, eh?
Yeah, I was very young. You know, ndizokwenza le internship, I have to learn to stand on my own. Yes, even in varsity, but the fact that uhlale res, I think you take for granted land but you've got a shelter. Then of course you get a stipend ekhaya ngoku, you know, now and again. So you are able to buy necessities. Ubambe ke nawe because ke mna ke okondaba ngumntwana ohustlishayo, ne? So even when I was ndisafunda, it was done bane ndikhe ngixela abantu basendisuka kuthengisa ukutya tasty foods kwake itrolley yayimisa eOxford. So ndiphume eklasini, classes ze-broadcasting zaziphela ngo-12, ndileqa tasty foods sifike sithengise pha. And I think my love to interact with people started there, you know.
Okay.
I'm 18 years old and below age 18, 19, ndithetha nabantu ndithi dance nechomi kwakho ne-medical center kwakune-offices pha ne medical center in an office park or park spot and whatnot. Those people eventually became our customers because xa befika apha ndibabetha ngomlevo, umuntu ndimxelela ndisaza ndithi namhlanje isitywe sisiphekileyo funa ukuphosa, you know. So when I got to Joburg, then I realized by that friendly, warm environment, which is, you know, a community of people you live with, ayikho. So kufuneka ndiqale a new support system, ndiqale and adapted to a new culture. And ndaphangelela IT Web for 6 months because that was my contract for 6 months. And then I decided, let me go back. Ndaphindela esikolweni the following year to do my postgrad. And I think kulaa nyaka yongonde senze postgrad, I was like, hey, I need to get a job, you know. Because nasekhaya kaloku kuthi hayi noko besikunika elixesha. Noko after the qualification ngoku ungahamba uyofunda. But I knew into yokubana I need to get the BTech and whatnot. Then ndizakwazi into yokubana at least ndibe nento solid endiya ngayo. So for that year, it was really difficult. Then bamba pa, and also I was taking his studies only on Saturdays. So during the week, I had nothing to do. But it also helped me because then I dissertation, so I would have plenty of time. Ndincedise ngeke ndibe student assistant.
Sasifunda kude.
Hayi but ndinayo kaloku. Ngengekho lapha. Dagreta kabini. When I was drop out.
No.
You dropped out? No.
Ngagqiba i-theory, i-dissertation ngazandigqibe.
It is dropping out.
Zisekhona.
But you dropped out.
It's not a big deal.
It's a big deal.
For me. So it says pitch jobs during.
And then you know,
Post-grad.
I think that year when I was going to graduate the following year. Now this is another crazy story because I've always been I'm a big believer. I'm sure you know this. You've known me for years. I always see what I want, and I believe it. So even when I pray or when I meditate, I think I learned this at a very young age. I will see myself in it. Intuitive presenting is something I used to do even in varsity. I mean, I knew this was an industry I wanted to get into. So in the mirror, I would do my practice and whatnot, But I started to see myself in the environment in Funubaguyu. And that year, beginning of the year, I remember graduation was going to be around March, April. One time I'm sleeping.
This is 2012, ne?
Yeah, 2012. I'm sleeping and my uncle calls and he says, hey, I see this post here, but if you don't experience, I always hear graduates saying, but your years bet into a 3 to 5 years experience. It was a 3 to 5 year experience job, but I knew Dandina experience, but not to that level. Ne? But I had experience because as I was studying Dan Sebens, I applied, went for interviews, and that's also when I applied, I wasn't shortlisted. Because firstly, yes, denial experience because I had peace jobs and then this regular. But surely there are people who are going to apply for this position who are more experienced than me. And I applied, because I kept on, when I walked in Disego interviews, I claimed that space. I said, I'm going to work here. So it happened. Kwabuya isn't, as it will regret to inform you, as I had expected, because Kutatumtu's got more experience than me. I wrote an email, I said, thank you. And then in Parliament, okay. When I went to Pali. And then Kwabuya Gengoku and an email that said, I think a week later, a week before I graduate. Now, I'm thinking, I'll graduate, and then a week before my graduation, Kwangena a call and an email. It said, due to the nature of your interview, we decided to open a second position, so we'll take 2 people in that position.
Wow.
And I'm starting immediately after my graduation. My graduation was midweek, and then one of those days. And that's how it started. And
it must have been
I called my grandma.
Big deal.
I called my grandma, and I remember there's a song. Okay, this is going to make me emotional. There's a song we used to sing, but it says, literally, when I called her, that's the song we sang. And she said, and I told her I got a job. And she was in disbelief. And and she prayed over the phone. Ne? And, now that I'm literally in that moment, and she prayed and she blessed it. Earlier that year, she had said, because I had a dream about something, I'm a dreamer as well. And she said that means there's luck coming your way. We used to, so she and I used to bonding into Yamapupak. Like I would wake up in the morning, or she would wake up in the morning at hey, hasn't poop into it till. And then I would ask her, but little took tin makul. And she would tell me, but no, into it till it usually means into it till. Okay. So my grandma had that dreaming gift, and I think it's something that I took from her. And unfortunately, that same year, just a few months working, and figure up and gone back and dipangela umsebenzi obhadlileyo ngoku. 5 months later, she left and she passed on. But yeah, that was the beginning of my journey. Kengoku did ndiyofika ko SABC and all of that.
Ndifuna ukujumpa igane a bit because ndifuna sifocus kule nto ye power of manifestation namaphupha. Uphangele SABC e-TV sayibona ijourney yakho uqala kulungelo lakho, went on to current affairs, rights and recourse, very young, hosting ishow ebezikhutshwa ngabantu abadala.
I was 24 when I got ilungelo lakho, and people still don't believe that because I got in them.
I was really impressed when I saw you doing rights and recourse. I was like, wow. Because that was a serious show.
It was a serious show. Rights and recourse and question time on Potato, so I used to fill in for him. And when Tumelo left for Russia, I did Sunday Live.
Yes, asikhuluma.
Yeah.
Siyake leyo, ndifuna focus akule manifestation, the power of dreams.
Yeah.
Wafumana ijob as radio DJ. I know the journey, it was not as smooth as we would have thought it would be because of it was Taylor politics. But I mean, you were someone who was on TV already, and you would expect it to be a smooth journey. But I think mhlambi ke nayo into yokwenza okanye into yenzayo kuwe building your character as a person.
Yeah.
But I saw a Facebook post owaphinda wayiposta about a Facebook post or we post still, I think a year or
2 years before.
Tell us about
So I'm on TV at the time, and the show I was doing well, yeah, then we look at doing these other shows you mentioned. And I got invited by Unona Latose was doing a show with Uamas at the time,
Yes,
the show that I
Unona.
eventually did. And I think I got to that show because I knew line up Umhlobo. At the time, I was also reading News School Radio 2000.
Okay.
But whenever I would read news, I knew about, no, man, I want to engage because I'm a conversationalist. And so they invite me. They had a feature. Was it Sasa's Why? I think so. So they'll take people who Sasa's Why at the time was being done on that show. And so Figonona briefs me and she says, listen, I was going to buy a guest get up. You are basically going to be a presenter.
Co-host.
And I'm like, man. Nithathe njani ifake butchery. So, and then I got there and I did the show. I remember they had an interview with Utatotile. Did Konba Bekton Zosazaza Mosap? I can ask questions.
Sure.
And I remember they looked at me and said, eh? Okay. And Ubongs was a producer at the time. And I need to give credit to him. Ubongs believed in me. Because when I think coming from a background, your current affairs and doing ezinye shows ngesiNgesi 4 I then saw myself going SAFM 2000 vibe. Okay. And then Ubongs was like, Spitch, you need to get here. You need to be here. And I'm like, no, I mean, Umhlobo is big to start with. Number 2, and Abantu used to commend me for command yami yesiXhosa and this is a TV.
Okay.
And he said, in the courses are good, you fit here, you are young, we are Bongs. Yeah, it's a lento speech.
Sure.
And at the time, dan you know. So when he heard Bandibizo, because at the time he was producing a drive time in.
Okay.
When he heard in Dokbana, Tizabapa, what we want to get is your opportunity to shine. There are people who are listening. So he was always my cheerleader. Ne? And Nyani, I got there. When I left that show, there was something, I can't describe the feeling I had.
Kauzami, describe.
There was a feeling of assurance I had when I left that show, being a guest.
Yeah.
And that feeling of assurance said, this is a show. It was more like a confirming. I've had many of those, Gemnadine.
Okay.
And Omnyumdu will say, oh, come on, that's you have voices. It wasn't even a voice, but it was a very solid and a distinct voice and a feeling of assurance. But this is a show that you're going to do. Ne? And when I started my talks with Umhlobo, one would think it and I kupana ben show. No.
No. And before you get there, you wrote this.
And so I left after the show. I went to write that again nage. I just had a great interview because I told people and people were tuning in. They loved the lendos. They said, oh, you've got a radio voice and whatnot. And I wrote. And writing it, I was writing it in Jekba. I believed it because it's something I desired. But I didn't know it would manifest that quickly. And I said, one day I'm going to host this show.
Yeah, I remember that
post. I said, one day I'm going to host this show. That's like 2 years before. And I left it at that. I left it in the hands of God and the universe. And I always do that. I said, I want it. And every single thing I've heard, Dini, I would see it and say, I want it and I'm going to have it.
So do you think after you put out that word, you do something where a specific to work towards that goal? As you've just said, you say it, you envision it, and you let God.
There's a song I like, Anita, what's her name? I've forgotten. It's a gospel song. It says, it's done. What I am, I already am. What I desire, I already am. So I think by the time the fact that I was even invited, it was even beyond the person who invited me. You know, I feel like there comes a time, Dini, where God and the universe, where your stars and your moons just simply align. I always say it is God and the universe. God is bigger than everything, right? It doesn't matter what else you believe in. God is God. But there comes a time where God and the universe conspire for your good. And I felt in Dogwana, so God was simply was directing my footsteps when I was right and was using people to open doors for me. Because had Unona Latose, who was a producer at the time, not invite me, that probably whoever was listening would have never heard me, who was a decision maker at the time, to say, ngonyaka othile, I want him kuline up yethu.
Had Ubongani not nudged
Had
you and
Ubongs not
encouraged
pushed
you?
me, to keep on, because he was so, when umntu pusha,
Ngiyamazi ke xa se-hyped up.
uthi uqonda uba hayi uyandibhanqa ubongs yintoni wandipusha jonga ndandifika qho athi ubongs Spitch, you belong here wena, you belong here. And so I feel like God directed everything and organized everything for my good, so that very dream be realized, because it was a dream, but at that time I was not awake. When you're not alert, you're not alert to the doors around you. You're not alert to the people who are being used to bring that dream into reality.